Good evening, Madam President.
I've been doing yoga.
Good evening, Madam President. It is 6 p.m. and I've started the recording.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mrs. Maida.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's a moment of silent meditation. And thank you all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton?
Here.
Dr. Henderson?
Here.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Here.
Ms. Maida?
Here.
Ms. Beneo?
Here.
Ms. Santiago?
Here.
Mr. Stridiron?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Let's do it again. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: matter made confidential under FERPA, employment history of particular individuals, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes. Thank you. See you all in exec and then see everybody else out here again in a while.
Good evening, Madam President. I've started the recording back up. Just to let you know, the public hearing has to start at 7. We can't start early. You're muted, ma'am.
I'm trying to figure out what we could do in 3 minutes.
I can go to my second item if you want. It's a recognition of one of our teachers.
We okay with that, Mr. McCoy?
Sounds good, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam President, item 3.2, I'm excited to acknowledge and recognize. It's always great to acknowledge any one of our staff who in this case is being recognized across the entire Hudson Valley. Ms. Catherine Gilligan is the new recipient of the Mid-Hudson Study Council Excellence of Teaching Award. And we presented her flowers in the award just last week. Ms. Gilligan, as many of you might know, represents the very best of our librarians. She represents Orange County very well. And as you can see, she also represents the Hudson Valley very well. So it's an honor to have one of our very own teachers being recognized for this award. And we wish her the very best on next chapter of her life as she is retiring at the end of this school year after dedicating 30 years of her career to the Newburgh and Lawrence City School District. So if you could join me in just acknowledging her, giving her a round of applause. Thank you so much for, Ms. Gilligan, thank you so much for everything you've done, how you've inspired children to love reading. And anyone who knows you, who enters your classroom, knows just how much you truly love reading, how much you love literacy, and how much you inspire children to do the same. So congratulations.
Congratulations and thank you, Mrs. Gilligan. That's really wonderful from me and the Board of Education. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dr. Padilla, it's 7 o'clock. Can you start the public session, the public hearing?
Mr. Durante, can you pull up the public hearing PowerPoint, please?
I can present it also, Matthew, if that's easier. Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Spindler.
Okay, thank you. It is with extreme gratitude and sincerity that I present the public budget hearing to the Board of Education and the community. This is a graph and representation of our budget to budget, which you have seen in our prior budget meetings, and our budget to budget from 2020 to 21-22 is at a conservative 2.01%. And you can see that for the 6th year in the row, the district has no increase to the tax levy, and we remain at 0% to the tax levy. How the tax levy is compromised is indicated here on this slide. This is also available after the budget has been approved and voted on by the community. It's on the New York State Comptroller website. This is the numbers that we use to determine what the tax levy could have been. And we could have raised the tax levy by a few $1 million and over 2%, but we are increasing it by $0 and 0%. And then just for information, the pilots just mean payments in lieu of other taxes that are given to different businesses and entities in lieu. And you can see that carryover as well. So carryover shows us what we were able to raise. There's another additional formula done that we did not do in the past that the state allows you to carry over, and we are not requesting to carry over any of that as well. Thank you. Next slide. This is also located on our school page on the budget. And this is a summary of our revenue resources. And you can see here our state resources, our federal resources, and our local resources, in which $110,864,000 does come from the tax basis. You can see here again the pilots and other miscellaneous revenue. We will be appropriating $0 from our reserve this year, consistent with prior years. And this year, unlike last year, we will not be appropriating any fund balance to this budget. So we were able to balance the budget without using reserves or fund balance or increasing the tax levy. The state aid is created at different levels. The foundation aid, we do see an increase here. We have an anticipated increase to be whole over the next 3 years. You can see the differences there. Our special service aid, our high cost aid, our instructional materials aid, those are based on expenses and children enrolled. We did see a decline in our transportation aid. Remember, it's an expense-based aid, so you only get back what you expend. And we're currently at a 90% reimbursement rate on our transportation. There's our high tax aid, our building aid, and there's our subtotals. I also want to take the community to a look here at the pandemic adjustment. You can see there that we are supposed to receive $4.2 million in our CARES grant. We have been approved for that grant. That grant runs from expenses from March 2020 to August of 2022. We've received just $850,000 of that allotment. We are going to extend that grant into next year's budget and take $3 million of that. And that's what you can see there. Also, the total state aid that was projected or anticipated of $165 million last year, We will not see all of that. We will see approximately 161 million. We budgeted from the state aid runs approximately 99% of our anticipated state aid. Okay, this is the breakdown of our miscellaneous revenue, the pilots, which is the payment in lieu of taxes I spoke about earlier, interest and penalties that we will receive for delayed payments and taxes. We also receive some money from utility tax, a local revenue, interfund transfers from some of our grants coming into our general funds, miscellaneous, and appropriated reserves. We will be taking $0 from there. Okay, a budget has all New York State school budgets are comprised of a 3-part budget: administration, program, and capital. This is further details are provided on our school website underneath budget. This is the big bucket categories of administration of 32 million, program, and capital. And you also receive more detailed information on this in the flyer sent home, the budget mailer. Our school district budget, we are proposing $293,207,684. And our library budget, which is part of our school district, only 2 in New York State that comprise the library budget, is of $5,823,244. And our school board member candidates are listed here below. There are 3 seats currently and 5 individuals running. And please note that Tuesday, May 18th, 2020, our polls will open up at noon until 9 p.m. Thank you very much. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
This is a public hearing, so I guess I'm going to turn it to Dr. Padilla.
Matthew, do you have?
No comments on the public hearing were submitted. And just a point, the election is May 18th, 2021, coming up next Tuesday.
Thank you. Dr. Padilla, would you like to continue with your session?
I will. So I have item 3.1, and I'm just going to share my screen to provide the board and the community another update on Operation Reopen. And so we have several updates for this evening. So a little bit of information on graduation, prom, ESYP, our pool construction project, and accomplishments report. So the first 2 items just being around graduation and prom, as we recognize our seniors are anxiously waiting for some key information. So I'll just quickly outline. I'm not going to read everything that's here, but I'll just cover the high level details. So right now, based on the latest New York State Department of Health guidance, and this is why we have in red subject to change, because it can change. In fact, it's changed already multiple times. So we hope it changes where we're able to accommodate more families, but at this present time, we have to plan for the information that we're obligated to follow. And so we believe we're going to be able to hold 2 ceremonies on the same date. And you can see what our rain date is. Right now, we're projecting that these ceremonies would happen in the afternoon. We will provide a live streaming service for families that can't come in person, but very much want to be part of the ceremony. We want to make sure they stay connected. However, we are required for anyone who does come in person to provide a certain level of proof that we've outlined here. And they range from making sure you have the vaccination, making sure you have a negative diagnostic test, and there's a number of those, and or whether you have proof that you have fully recovered from a positive case within a certain time frame. So that is critical. No one will be allowed to attend the ceremony in person if they do not provide this proof. And this is why we're sharing this information tonight, and why we will continue to share the information up through the ceremony itself on June 24th. As it relates to the prom, we do have a date of June 4th. We're sorry, seniors. We know you may want to bring guests, but unfortunately, due to the health constraints, And this is a matter of trying to provide you a special moment, but in a safe manner. So this year, no guests will be allowed. There is a requirement to attend. And similar to all events that everyone now has to go to when it's a large setting, there are various COVID protocols that everyone must follow. And so those would be strictly adhered to throughout the prom and graduation for that matter. And the same level of proof is required for both the prom and the graduation. As it relates to extended school year programs, and just to be clear, extended school year generally is considered the summer, but it's more than just the summer. What we're providing you right now are some summer ideas, but when we speak of extended school year programs, we're starting with the summer and then we'll extend through the fall, winter, and spring. So as you can see here, as it relates to core programs, we are planning to offer our scholars in K through 12 both intervention and enrichment opportunities. And we know the board has asked these kinds of questions, have made a number of statements of wanting to make sure we're able to offer both. And that is in fact our intention. You can see the dates. We have extended the program from 4 weeks to 6 weeks for obvious reasons. And then also extending to Fridays, where in previous years, we only offered programs 4 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. This year, for obvious reasons, we're going to offer Fridays. And the way we're going to treat Fridays is a leave and learn experience. So we want to be able to provide field trips. We want to be able to provide some unique experiences to students who in many ways have not been able to get outside, have not been able to travel in any way. And so we're looking to provide students some unique experiences and ask everyone to be on the lookout, because information on social media, website, and letters home will be coming very soon. We're very excited to announce that tomorrow we will be engaged in a ribbon cutting ceremony because we're going to be reopening our pool. And this picture does a little justice, but nothing like what it's going to look like when you're in person. And you can see the dramatic renovation that took place for our pool, our locker room, our stands, our ventilation. And I'm also excited to announce that this is our first capital project under the current plan that comes in under budget. And that's something the team and I really strive for, is to be able to deliver in a timely fashion, and we are on time and under budget. So we're excited to reopen the pool and allow our scholars back into this phenomenal space where they can continue to do what they have always done for decades upon decades, and that is complete excellence as it relates to our programs there. I'm also excited to announce that our annual accomplishments report is ready to go, and we will be officially releasing the accomplishments report tomorrow at our food sites. We're going to be providing copies at each school, as well as local shops in each of the different municipalities, and it will be provided digitally. So we're excited again to just recognize the good work that has taken place this school year. I know it's getting warmer, and as much as we all want to be outside and maybe have the tendency to lower our guard, we have to remind ourselves that we're still navigating this pandemic, and it's exciting to hear the COVID numbers really coming down week after week. It's a good sign that everyone is staying diligent and being mindful of how important it is to mask up and stay socially distant and frequently wash your hands. So I just want to thank the community for doing their part and ask that you continue to do your part, so that way we can get back to offering students full-time in-person instruction in a safe way. Madam President, I'll turn it back to you for questions or comments.
Board members, any questions or comments? I see no hands, Dr. Padilla.
Okay, Madam President, that concludes my items for this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see where we are. Okay. We're going to move on to public comment on agenda items. Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. There was one comment submitted who came from Miss Eleanor Lincoln. It's as follows. I have the following questions regarding the library and the budget for the library. Number one, what was last year's budget money used for since the library has been closed until recently? There must have been excess funds, and were those funds used for other budget items not included in the library budget? Number two, when will the library be open 7 days a week, full in-person availability to the public without limits on capacity? Capacity was never an issue with the Newburgh Library. Number three, what is the increase on the library budget from last year to this year? And please explain any increase. Thank you. That was the only public comment submitted, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We're going to move on to my section. Tonight, I have items 5.1 through 5.4 as a consent agenda. Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Stridiron.
Thank you, Madam President. On the grade level classification, I see that the only change is adding the words "or staff member." Could someone provide the justification for adding that item, those words, to the policy?
Mr. Forget or Mr. Bayer, anybody?
I can answer that if you like, Mr. Fortune. It's up to you.
Either one.
So in the past, the grade level classification allowed parents to appeal. Given the circumstances of a number of students who have shown promotion in doubt, we want to make sure that we've had a number of students who have shown a variety of efforts this year. And we've always wanted to make sure that there's an understanding that there are some factors that might be involved in that promotion conversation and grade level classification. So we're just asking that the board consider that if some of those circumstances are brought to the attention of the principal, that there be a mechanism by which the principal can review that evidence to ensure that we understand what those circumstances may be. I mentioned we had a spring academy for middle school. We're offering additional help within the school day. We brought in a number of students back virtually into in-person who have suddenly shown tremendous improvement in their overall grades. So we just want to have some ability to consider and contemplate some of the circumstances kids are currently dealing with in that understanding of promotion into the next grade level.
Sorry, Mr. Forget, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. And just to support what Mr. Bear said and the request at the policy committee, once the board makes a determination on this policy, a regulation would then be created specifically addressing letter C, so everyone is aware what the protocols and procedures will be.
Mr. Stridiron, I see your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
Yeah, it's just as a follow-up. The reason why I brought this up is because will the parent be notified if it's just a staff member requesting that the student be promoted to the next level? Will the parent be notified that that occurs, or is the parent left out of the decision-making entirely? And then also, Mr. Bear said that there was a substantial number of students that were in jeopardy of not being promoted to the next grade. What are the numbers? What is the situation at in our schools? Because I don't think the board has ever been provided any data showing the situation being a big concern. So what percentages are we dealing with?
I'm going to answer part of it. In the weekly, we get under the section that says, Miss Mineo asked this question, the attendance of in-person as well as virtual kids. That to me gives me a clue about how many kids are not showing up to get some of this work done at each school. So
well, those attendance numbers are actually reflective of the some of the attendance numbers as far as the chronically absent. Yeah,
Well, how do you know that, Mr. Stridiron?
the chronically absent students in schools are between 50 and 70%, and then the attendance numbers are in the 85% range. So maybe, that's a different metric. I understand that, but I think the board should be provided all the information. And right now we're not provided all the information, and we're trying to make decisions and votes without being provided the true situation at the schools.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Mr. Bayer, you still have your hand up. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, it was a while ago that I raised my hand. I just want to make sure I remember why I was answering it. Oh, it's tied to our retention and promotion policy as well. So in that, parents are required to be notified when there's promotion in doubt. So yes, parents have been notified. We have obviously report cards and progress reports that demonstrate concerns. And then certainly if we are considering any student for promotion or retention under this policy, that parents will be part of that process.
Mr. Forget, I see your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the parents will have the opportunity to request this particular consideration. It's for parent, guardian, or staff member. But I also would like to recognize Mr. Stridiron brought up with regards to communication to the parent. Mr. Stridiron and Board of Ed members, we will include that in the regulation, that become one of the steps in the regulation to ensure that parents are fully informed and aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Burton, I see your hand.
So in regards to the grade 8 repeaters that are placed into grade 9, what's in place in terms of that transitional period, particularly when we have 8th graders that have not done well in 2 years in 8th grade. Now they're being placed to 9th grade. So how are they turned over to their 9th grade school? What specifically in terms of the transition are they receiving? Because these are high need kids.
Mrs. Burton, I'm going to ask for a very short reply to this because this is policy and we're going to move on to accepting the policy or not. So can somebody give a short answer for Mrs. Burton's question?
Yeah, I'll chime in because the challenge of incoming 9th graders needing additional supports is not a particularly new one, and is why we've developed particular monitoring systems and critical conversations that we have with administrators and PPS staff in order to provide various supports right out of the gate. And they range from mentoring programs to specific interventions. We've even modified 9th grade programs in order to support students. We have the night program now that provides additional flexibility. And I'll just say we have more work to do in this area. So, I don't want to rattle off everything that we do because I think we do some things really, really well. And I think we have to do some new things in order to continue to support the gap that we know children are going to be experiencing.
Thank you, Madam President, for allowing that diversion.
Thank you. I want to say one thing. I hope everybody looked at those 5 resolutions. I want to commend Dr. Padilla and Mr. Forget and Mr. Baer and Mr. Howard as chair of the policy committee. We are trying to make our policies more inclusive and more equitable, and we're finally putting our money where our mouth is. We're doing what we said we were going to do by adapting policies to become more equitable and more equal for all of our students. So that was just like my own personal comment. So I'm going to move on. Are there any more questions or comments? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
No.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items. We're going to move on to board committees. Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Mrs. Maida.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a very productive curriculum committee meeting on May 5th. Several of the resolutions that you will see on the agenda this evening were included. We had updates on our AIS, talking about master scheduling to be equitable across the district, and something very exciting, new resources for the athletic department and performing arts, which is a very exciting new thing for us. We also had an excellent presentation, CLR, by Mr. Bayer and Ms. Moriarty, which will continue in next month's curriculum too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Maida. We're going to move on to Exceptional Learners Committee, Mrs. Burton.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening. We also met on May 5th, 2021, and we received an update in regards to our exceptional learners, which included state performance indicators, parent surveys that were required, and what is being done to ensure we get more of those, including robocalls. We had an update on our CSC meetings, which includes annual reviews, reevaluations, initial reviews, and program reviews. And we also, we were able to get a very more intensive update on the MBK program, including the many strategic outcomes and recommendations that are part of that initiative. And I'm proud to say that we are moving on with developing. We had a meeting last Thursday with our first My Sister's Keepers initiative. So happy to hear we're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. We're going to move on to Mr. Howard and the Policy Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. At our policy meeting on May 6th, we went over the 4 policies that were just voted on under the president's section of the agenda, and the few that we worked on, but it's going to go back to committee and will be brought before the board at the next month's meeting. We also had discussed the resolution to approve additional election inspectors, and we also talked about resolution to approve school leadership team appointments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. We're going to move on to the Library Committee and Mr. Stradar.
Thank you, Madam President. The Library Committee met on May 6th, and we discussed a number of items. Risk assessment. We had a actually detailed conceptual phase discussion by CS Arch, and the phasing plan was discussed. The reopening plan is in stage 4, and stage 5 is full reopening is considered for May 17th. And the trustee training, which is going to be required next year for all library committee members and all trustees, that's going to start next year. So we're going to be trained by the RCLS. One other item that was discussed was the potential for the bookmobile to finally come to fruition after many years of this. So hopefully maybe we can all take a ride on the bookmobile sometime before the year ends. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Stradar. We're going to move on to Mrs. Santiago and Audit and Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. In addition, our committee met this evening just before this meeting at 6 o'clock. In addition to the items in the finance section, we also discussed, there was a presentation by the external auditors, the Bonadio Group, outlining expectations and timeframe, and in order that the timeframe that they'll complete the audit by October. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Secondary, Mr. Bayer.
Thank you, Madam President. Curriculum Instruction Secondary has 5 items in the consent agenda for your consideration.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Yes, Mr. Stradar.
Item 7.5, please.
Thank you. Any others? So I'd like to entertain a motion on 7.1 through 7.5 with 7.4 without 7.5. I'd like to
So
entertain a
moved, Madam
motion.
President.
Thank
Second
you.
that.
Questions or discussion on 7.1 through 7.4? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Let's move on to item 7.5, please. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second that, Madam President.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Stridiron?
Thank you, Madam President. So this was discussed at the curriculum meeting, and I really enjoyed the questions that were asked by Ms. Mineo. Hopefully you'll ask them tonight, or at least bring them up, because I do have concerns about the going on a plane across country in June or July, I believe it is, July 5th. It's going to be packed with in Las Vegas with tourists on July 4th. So that's one item, one aspect of it that is concerning. The other is when I brought up that we should go bold in our educational endeavors going forward, it didn't mean to go to Vegas. So I know that this conference is also in Orlando and Atlanta at different times of the year. So maybe the timing is not perfect for the type of learning. I did look at the sessions that they had. They were very good sessions. The one thing I saw was how to have better discipline in the schools, which is something I believe is a concern and is a problem. But one thing that we've talked about for years is lowering the class sizes. If we lower the class sizes in our schools, our discipline will get better. If we lower the class sizes in our schools, our results will get better. It benefits the students and it benefits the staff. So to be bold and to go bold for now, I would like to see the board support a reduction in class sizes for the upcoming school year as much as 20%. That would make a 25 student classroom a 20 student classroom. And yes, it would cost money, but we are here to get the results. So
Mr. Stridiron,
is that possible?
I love what you're saying, but this is not the place for this discussion. And I truly, truly love what you're saying, honestly, because I believe in my heart what you're saying is true. Can we get back to the conference thing?
For the
Can you
conference,
tie it in?
sure. The conference tying it in is the topics that are discussed at the conference are all related to things that can be done with reduction in class sizes. Not all of them, but some of them. So that's why I'm bringing it up. I do have concerns about going to Vegas. I mean, we can't even meet as a board in person, but we're sending people to Vegas. So I think it's hypocritical.
So my thing is, I think you have an item for the agenda for curriculum instruction. I see Mr. Baer, and he's going to make a note, and that item is going to be on curriculum instruction agenda for June, and we will be discussing it at the June board meeting. How's
For
that?
for class sizes?
Yes, sir. Because I agree with you, and I think that's something that we need to discuss. But
okay,
let's talk about only the conferences now, okay? Because that's the section that we're on.
Okay, the other thing about the conference is on the conference website, it says who should attend. And they have a whole list of people that should attend. Classroom teachers. I agree. There should be some teachers involved in this. School psychologists. How come we don't have any school psychologists? Why is it pretty much administrators and the guidance counselors? Because if we have school psychologists and social workers and classroom teachers as part of this group, one of each of these groups, you can actually have turnkey professional development to other school psychologists and to other classroom teachers and social workers. So why is it just administrators? Like, did they get to pick who they were going to send? Or how did this come about? Thank you.
Okay, so before I get to you, Mrs. Burton, don't think I'm ignoring you. Mr. Bayer or Mr. Forget, can you talk to how this conference came about, and then we can get on the conference, discussion again.
Normally, we look each other across the room and see who wants to take the answers, though we can't do that virtually. I can let Mr. Forget speak because I know Mr. Brown has been working on this. It's part of they are a CSI school. It's part of their school improvement funds. They were seeking out a conference that would help them into developing their SEP. This is one of the best known organizations in the country for providing tremendous PD around the areas that the building is trying to address. So it deals with school discipline. It deals with innovative teaching strategies. It's got strong offerings around school climate and culture, which Ms. Brooks has been really working on in her building plans, and also working on the at-risk and struggling students that we know in terms of learning loss, and they're going to help guide along. They were chosen because they volunteered to go. Because it was a summer offering, they were the ones who wanted to go. There is a guidance counselor of the 4, so it's not just, or 5, I believe. So it's not just administration. LaShawn is also going, who's also one of the guidance counselors.
So to kind of get it back to what Mr. Stridarn was saying, could we suggest to other buildings that maybe they send representatives to a different time and a different place? Am I reading you right, Mr. Stridarn?
Well, I would think that would be the case, yes, but also as far as just the type of people that could go, I would like to see the school psychologists and social workers get to go rather than like 3 or 4 administrators from the same school.
Well, we can't mandate, but yes.
I'm saying, yeah, they can say they volunteered. Yeah, I'll volunteer to go to Las Vegas too. But I think that people know about this. I don't know if other people in the school building knew about this. That's why I asked, how did this come about?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bayer, I see your hand, Mrs. Burton, and Mr. Walker, I will get to you.
So just one other thing, it was asked of what are the potential relief if we do have COVID-related concerns here. There are currently no transportation restrictions. We expect our staff to follow all COVID guidelines on the plane and when they're in the conference. I did call the Innovative Schools organization, and they offer a 3-year voucher if for any reason a person cannot attend for COVID-related reasons, whether it be their plane got canceled or they themselves had COVID, or there was a reason why because of COVID, if the rules or the circumstances change. And we'll work that same situation out with regard to the flights themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. That answered a lot of my questions from the curriculum committee. And that was what Mr. Stridarn was referring to before. Mrs. Burton, your hand was up.
Thank you. I just want to concur with what Mr. Stridarn said in terms of the folk that are going to Las Vegas. I too think it's a wonderful opportunity, but I would like to see a more well-rounded staffing in terms of bringing back the knowledge base to those different, areas of expertise in our district as well, as opposed to 2 school counselors that could be a school counselor and a social worker as well. But that's all. I just want to say that as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. How about you, Mr. Walker? I see your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to say that looking at the time and the money that's being spent on this, I would like to have some type of report given to us after the workshops, I guess I use, because I want to know what's going on. I want to know what they learn, what can we expect them to use to apply to our school district, and what dividends can we expect to see?
Dr. Padilla, would you like to talk about what happens when people return from conferences?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm certainly listening to the conversation, and I just want to be careful we're not making some assumptions about, because it's Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is a very big city. Yes, I am aware that many people go there for other matters, but the individuals going to this conference are doing so by giving up some time, using federal money in order to bring back information for the school. And that's exactly the expectation, Ms. Manel. This is a school that is making really good progress. The administrative team and the faculty are really coming together. We certainly can go back to the school and see if any other folks are interested, and bring that back to curriculum committee for sure. But there's a specific plan they're following, and what they're doing in this conference and what they're learning in this conference is directly related to their school improvement plan. And they'll be sharing that information, those resources, strategies, and moving the school in the direction it's been going in over the last 2 years. That's exactly the expectation. And we have people at central office ready to receive them when they get back to initiate some of the ideas.
Thank you. I see Mr. Forget, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just quickly, I wish the timing was better, but if you recall, the TSIs and CSIs had presented to the board throughout the school year. They did a beginning of the year, they did a mid-year, and they're going to do an end of year. That is slated for either the next meeting or the first meeting in June, where you'll hear from Ms. Brooks and her implementation of her SEP. The SEP this is an initiative that's aligned with her SEP. So you'll get a quick update as to the plans and the rollout of this. And as you can see, they're using their school improvement money that's designated for that to fund this particular conference. So I will be sure that when Ms. Brooks does her end of year report to the board as a CSI school, she incorporates and includes the strategy behind this.
Thank you. That's really great, Mr. Forget. Mr. Stridarn, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. So how many other schools have in their SEP similar items that would be helped by learning what's being taught at this conference? I just think that having 3 administrators from the same school attending the conference is redundant. If you have it spread out over the different areas of the school, you're going to have a more effective, because they can't possibly go to all of the sessions. There's so many sessions. If you have 5 or 6 different types of staff going to the conference, they can spread out and learn as much as possible and bring that information back. And other schools should have the opportunity to go to this event, or possibly the one in Atlanta or Orlando. So are other schools putting in for going to this conference that we know of?
Not this particular conference, but as you guys know, pre-COVID, I mean, the board has been very supportive. I have been supportive. The CNI team has been very supportive of a number of different learning opportunities all across the country. This board specifically has been supportive of allowing folks to engage in those kinds of opportunities. So my guess is I imagine this summer, certainly through the fall and spring, that what will come before you are a range of different opportunities that teachers and administrators feel they would like to explore. So this is just one of many that probably will start coming in front of the board.
Thank you. Mr. Forget, I see your hand is up. Do you have something else to add?
I just want to respond to Mr. Stridarn. I
Sure.
will definitely engage in a conversation with the TSI and CSI principals to remind them that the money that they're offering, that they're provided, can be used for this purpose. I did have a conversation with the Heritage Middle School principal today to talk about offerings that are over the summer, as they have a large sum of money they have to expend by August 31st. but I will intentionally reach out to the rest to ensure that they are aware they can use this as long as it is included in their SEP plan. So I will follow through with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker, I see your hand.
Yes. I just want to reiterate, I'm in favor of this, but I want to know how this information is going to be used in our district. I will want more than just, well, this is what we saw and this was great and we learned about this. I want a step-by-step investigation of application of how it's going to be used. And I think that that's worth knowing as board members. If we're going to okay this, then we need to know how will it be used, not just what happened there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Forget, your hand's still up. Do you have something else to add?
I'll just reiterate, I will make sure that when South Middle School creates their SEP for the 21-22 school year, that embedded in that SEP will be the learnings from this particular conference. And then along with that will be the measures of implementation to ensure what they said they're going to do, they will do. That's all part of that process. And I'll be sure that Ms. Brooks shares out that particular component, not just this year, but next year, so you can see it as well.
Mr. Levenstein, your hand.
Yes, I just want to make a comment that the same thing applies to board members when they go on conferences, and they should report back to the board what they learned and what they feel was helpful in making these decisions. Thank you.
I don't think that report is really in our purview. Our purview is three things, and one of them is not reports back from conferences. Those should go to curriculum and instruction and the superintendent, and a global information should come to the board, but not an individual one. So I disagree with you, Mr. Levenstein, and I apologize for disagreeing with you, but I don't think it's one of the big three that the board really does. So any
Don't
other
apologize.
questions or comments? Mr. Walker?
Yes. I respectfully disagree with you, Ms. Manel, because if there have been, I've witnessed a lot of very fine workshops and things outside of the state, that people have paid for, and then that we paid for or have okayed, and then they have simply gone to the wayside. And I think that if we are supposed to be stewards, then we need to know exactly what's going on in this regard, and that it is, I think it's really part of a natural process to be given some type of expectations and report. Thank you. With all due
Thank
respect.
you. We're going to move on. We're going to now do roll call.
Ms. Maida,
Yes, sorry.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
No.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services, Dr. Roman.
Thank you, Madam President. Under Student Support Services, we have one item for the board's consideration, 8.1 recommendations from CSE, CPSE committees.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Dr. Roman. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Dr. Spindler.
Thank you, Madam President. I present to you items 9.1 through 9.7 as a consent agenda.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second that.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo.
Yes.
Madam President, I would like to add an item.
Okay. Would you like to read the item first and then we'll have a motion to add?
Sure. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves amending the contract of sale between the district and DOT's Grocery LLC for the sale of the property located at 191 Washington Street, Newburgh, New York, by extending the due diligence period to August 31st, 2021, and the closing date to September 30th, 2021, contingent upon execution by purchasers of an amendment to the contract of sale approved by the school attorney by the close of business on May 21st, 2021. And be it further resolved that the board president is authorized to execute such amendment to the contract of sale as approved by the school attorney. A copy of such amendment to the contract of sale will be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to add this to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call to add.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago.
Yes.
Now I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion on this item? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron.
Yes.
That concludes my items for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spindler. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, I have items 10.1 through 10.10 for your consideration on tonight.
Thank you. Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Stridiron.
Thank you, Madam President. On item 10.9, how many students are set up in the system to receive the additional help from the teaching staff as part of this SMOA?
You want me to answer that, Ms. Mineo?
Yes, please, Mr. Bear.
I don't have an exact number. In one building it's 18. I believe another building is up to 30 or 40. Once it gets approved, we will finalize that. We can provide that to the board. The third building, I believe it's about 30 or 30 students as well.
Would it help if it was in the weekly, Mr. Stridiron?
Well, it would be good to know what the number of students in each school is that are in danger of not being promoted to the next grade based on their their grades? Because at this point, I don't think any of us really know the situation, unless someone does.
Dr. Padilla, would you like a consensus so we can ask for that data?
Yeah, that's a report, Madam President. What, I don't want to put words in Mr. Stradine's mouth, but what I think he is requesting is a promotion in doubt report. And if that's the case, then I'd ask for a consensus on the creation of that report, and we'll get it to you.
Is that something you're looking for, Mr. Stradine?
Yeah, it would be really helpful to know by grade, because if we know by grade, that will see the situation where we might have to do some intervention in summer school, other programs. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to do a consensus about this report being put together by Dr. Padilla for the board. So I'm going to start with Mr. Levinstein. Yes or no?
Can I make a comment first, Madam President?
Sure.
Thank you. I also, with these numbers, I would think we should get the criteria for someone being on this list, because otherwise we really don't know. And if that's the case, I would say yes.
Dr. Padilla, is that part of your?
What I'll do if the board provides a consensus for this report, the first part of it will be the criteria for determining someone's promotion is in doubt.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Levinstein, for your comment. Let's see where we are. Mr. Walker, how do you feel?
I'm for it.
Thank you, Mr. Stradine.
Yes.
Mrs. Santiago?
Yes.
Mrs. Burton?
Madam President, I have a comment as well.
Okay.
So along with this report, I mean, how detailed can we be? Because are these kids that are already have been at risk for a while, and have they been offered AIS? Are they part of, the multiple tier support services? I'd like a little bit more information about who these kids are and what has led up to this point where they are needing additional academic support services. And here we are in May. So they've been in school for quite some time. And have they been privy to other interventions prior to this?
Okay, so that's a whole different section. So let's go back to our first premise, and then we'll get to yours, okay?
Okay, thank
so
you.
What do you think about this basic?
Absolutely, we need the report, yes.
All right, and then I'm going to go back to your request in a second, okay? Mrs. Mader, how do you feel?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Henderson?
Yes, thank you.
And I agree, yes. So now let's go back to Mrs. Burton. Can we synthesize what you were asking? Because what you're asking for is a gigantic, gigantic thing. And I don't know, you and Dr. Padilla are going to have to do a little give and take and maybe come up with compromise on what's going to come out. Go ahead.
So this is mid-May, and we have teachers who are suggesting that they need more time with kids. I'm interested in knowing what intervention have they received up to this point, and if we have a process in place, are these teachers aware that these kids could have been maybe referred to receive additional intervention? I don't know. I just think in May, this is for this to be asking for now, which is a great idea, but when should this have begun? I don't know. I don't know what to ask for other than, what other services have some of these kids received up until now? And is it something more, or I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Padilla, can you kind of help us and maybe?
Yeah, so I recognize the genuineness in the requests, and what I hear is, the board wanting some detailed information around what sounds like a longevity report, and that is completely massive. What I'd like to do is this, if you guys are okay. Ms. Burton, can you and I have, can we carve out some time this week and let's engage in a conversation around more of the specifics of what you want, and then that could be shared with the whole board. I think what you're asking for is a very complex document, and you're talking hundreds and hundreds of students, where in some cases our interventions worked with some kids, in other cases they didn't work with other kids, and there's a range of different reasons why some worked and why some didn't, that are in our control and not in our control. But to do that from kindergarten to 8th grade, I don't know of any district that has that kind of comprehensive system. And so that's my only reason why I'm a little hesitant to say yes to it, is because this would require a massive undertaking by my team. Certainly, we can identify various data points to identify students who need support. We do that. We have monitoring systems in place. We know who requires the additional supports. Our administrators are working on who potentially will need to go to summer school, and they're working diligently now to provide various supports to them. If you're open, I'd say let's have a follow-up discussion where I can understand a little bit more the essence of what you may want to see that the board can consider. What you're asking for doesn't exist.
May I please, Madam President?
Sure, go ahead, Mrs. Burton.
So we don't know. I guess what we're asking, the original request.
No. Hold on a second, Mrs.
No,
Burton.
let me.
Don't have the discussion here. Dr. Badia is asking for some of your time.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So you and Dr. Badia will get together and kind of distill the need and then bring it back to all of us so that we can look either at doing it or changing it and doing it a different way. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that cool? Thank you, Dr. Badia. Okay. So I even forget where we are. I think we are at, Mrs. Maida, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. We do discuss this in curriculum, so that might be something we can add to the agenda, a little more in depth on our AIS information, and that might help for all of us to have that discussion. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you for your suggestion, Mrs. Maida. That was really very helpful. I think we're at the point of roll call on these items. Yes?
That's correct. 10.1 through 10.10, ma'am.
Okie dokie.
Ms. Burton.
Yes.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes.
Mr. Howard. Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Ms. Maida.
Yes.
Ms. Mineo.
Yes?
Ms. Santiago.
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore, and thank you for a great discussion we had there. We're going to move on to our clerk of the board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 2 items for consent, the approval of the minutes and some additional election inspectors for next Tuesday.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Ms. Maida.
Yes.
Ms. Mineo.
Yes?
Ms. Santiago.
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Burton.
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We're going to move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Mr. McCoy?
There was no public comments on non-agenda items, Madam President.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: employment history of particular individuals and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clark?
Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Maida,
Yeah, yes.
Ms. Mineo,
Yes.
Ms. Santiago,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
For everyone, good night. We will not be doing business when we return from executive session.